Hi there, this is Maurice Dwayne Smith, and this is Nuclear Popcorn. It's a new show that's designed to take you into the inner workings of working actresses, actors, producers, sometimes singers, athletes, activists. The connecting umbilical cord is that all these people have come from somewhere and have overcome something. Sure, they're the pillars of society as far as, you see them and, you always wonder, how did they get there? Today, we're going to start showing you how they got there. And two of my guests, which is Vida Ghaffari, award-winning actress,
Thank you,
and Joe Williamson, her publicist, friend as well. They're going to try to give you a glimpse into how they've gotten to where they've gotten. And let's just start with, first of all, just want to thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much, Maurice. It's an honor.
You and Joe are in the midst of something called Valentina, Seeking Valentina. It's raising all types of furor in the, well, when I say furor, it's just really on fire. It's, getting all type of attention and winning awards and stuff. And you're up for one of the awards in this short film. What's going on with Seeking Valentina?
Well, last week we were honored to have you at our Los Angeles premiere. It was at the beautiful Art Deco Historical Crest Theater in Westwood, which was phenomenal. I loved having it there.
Thank you.
And it's screened at so many wonderful festivals. It's won awards in India. It's won awards at the Fantastic Film Festival in San Diego, which I highly recommend. That was started by the wonderful Joanne Thomas and her husband Mike Thomas. So it's won at horror film festivals. It's won at all sorts of film festivals, and I'm very excited about that. It's up for a bunch of nominations at the Bare Bones Film Festival in Tuskegee, Oklahoma. So that's very exciting, and I'm very excited for the whole cast and crew: Armin Nasseri, Kristen West, Mo Whelan, Srinivas Pavasavu. It's just a great, Ali Bavarian, just a great cast and crew. We've had wonderful people working on that film, and I think what really struck people about that film was that it's breaking stereotypes. Like, we had an Indian character, but he was not stereotypical. He was the psychiatrist. I was the sister, and I wasn't like a stereotypical Middle Eastern character. So I think Armin is all about breaking stereotypes, and I think that's why it's garnered such a worldwide appeal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to give it away, but all I got to say is the very last sound of the movie will have you wondering, what's going on? Who is it? That's all I'm going to say. So it's very Hitchcockian, very cool, very type of thing that just makes you wonder, what's going to happen next,
Yeah, I feel like, because I go to festivals and I see it, every time I wonder what Valentina is and what she represents, and it's like a part of a bigger question, and I like it when movies make you question stuff, and I'm not just saying it because I'm in it, but it's an interesting psychological study, I think, partially, yeah.
Now there's another big question. How long have you known Joe? I know he's your publicist, but I heard something about you guys are celebrating your 1-year anniversary?
No, actually, I met him a year ago. We met at a screening of one of his clients' films, and it was just so crowded. There was such a hullabaloo that I guess we met for like 2 seconds. We didn't really stay in touch with each other, but then we reconnected by accident. There was an event in Santa Monica for Sue Wong, who's a friend of mine. She's a phenomenal fashion designer. She was being honored, I guess, by the city. And that's where I really got to meet Joe and talk to him. And I met his other wonderful client, Hank Garrett, who's like an esteemed actor and quite a humanitarian himself. So it was a wonderful thing to reconnect with him. Because, LA is such a vast place. And we've been working together, what, 6 months? So it's a 6-month anniversary, even though we met about a year ago.
Yes.
So.
Well, I tend to hang around Vida and Joe because they tend to introduce me to people that I used to watch while I was a child. Like, for instance, Mel Novak. It's like the so-called exploitative film. Well, those tongue-in-cheek type of, really, really great movies that made all that money, and people really enjoyed it back then, and now they're coming back. And, I met all those big guys through you, and like, say, for instance, Street Fighter 2, that deal?
Oh, it's Samurai Cop 2, Deadly Vengeance.
Yes.
Right.
And yeah, I love a lot of the classics, like Mel Novak, he did that civil films like Black Belt Jones.
Right.
Bruce Lee's final film, Game of Death.
Exactly.
Eye for an Eye with Chuck Norris. And a lot of these, and more recently, like I said, Samurai Cop 2, Deadly Vengeance with Bai Ling, and then the upcoming Checkpoint with Fred the Hammer Williamson, Bill Goldberg, Kenny Johnson, Tyler Mane of the X-Men film, Keen Hodder of the Friday the 13th films, William Forsythe. It's going to be a big film. We're really excited. But yeah, I like a lot of the classics. And if you look, a lot of them, like Black Belt Jones, is still influencing the films today in Game of Death. Like, for instance, Kill Bill, Quentin Tarantino's films, the jogger outfit that the actress wore was the yellow jogger outfit that Bruce Lee and this Bruce Lee character wore in Game of Death. Or if you look at Gloria's character, she was like one of the Gloria Hinvents from Black Belt Jones. A lot of that was taken, Quentin Tarantino used in Kill Bill. You know, she was like one of the original action heroines of the time.
I think especially the Vivica Fox character was really, and I kept telling John, like, why does this seem so familiar? These are movies from a long time ago, and he's like, because it's like knocked off practically. I mean, down to the, like, every bit of the costume. I couldn't believe it.
A lot of these classic films still influence the films and the new projects today. But, and it's good to meet somebody like you who appreciates a lot of the classics too.
Oh yeah, definitely. But now, I want those people here in the studio, please. Well, I was speaking to Mel Novak, and he told me he's probably going to come over, and hopefully we can just stuff this studio with all types of people, such as your friends. 'Cause, a lot of your friends are, pretty cool people.
Oh, thank you so much. It's funny, Mel Novak in the movies, he's one of the screen's biggest bad guy. I mean, like, he almost killed Jim Kelly in Black Belt Jones. He shot Bruce Lee in the face in Game of Death. He set up Chuck Norris in an Eye for an Eye. He beat up Steve McQueen and Tom Horn. He almost put Yul Brynner on fire in The Ultimate Warrior. And he teams up with kind of like the Extendables of Evil in Checkpoint, which is him, William Forsythe, Tyler Mane, who played Sabretooth in the X-Men films, and he played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie Halloween films, and Keen Hodder of Jason Voorhees fame, against like Fred the Hammer Williamson and Kenny Johnson and Bill Goldberg. So it's gonna be a big, but in real life, Mel's a hero. He goes to Skid Row. For over 30 years, he's been going to Skid Row. They call him the mayor of Skid Row. He's been there so many times, helping, giving back, helping the hungry and the homeless, and going to the most dangerous prisons in the country, reaching out to people, helping them get their life in order. I like people who give back. That's like one of my other clients, I don't know if I've had the chance of introducing you to, is Hank Garrett. Hank Garrett was originally living out in the street. He was a hoodlum, and Sammy Davis Jr. took him and got him off the street and straightened him out.
Was his mentor. Can you imagine having a mentor like Sammy Davis Jr.?
And then years later, Hank was performing at the Sands. He became a stand-up comic, opening up for Tony Bennett.
Wow.
And here comes in Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin. And Sammy Davis Jr. came around the back of the stage and said, after the show, I know you from someplace. And Hank said, I was that little kid. You got off the street. And then they both cried. It's great to see people give back like that. And then now, and then Hank went on to do famous TV shows like Car 54, Where Are You? He did Death Wish with Charles Bronson, 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford, on Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, Airwolf. And he's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, Martial Arts Hall of Fame, Weightlifting Hall of Fame. But what he does now is he goes to the prisons and he tries to mentor the little kids, troubled kids, the way Sammy Davis Jr. mentored him when he was in trouble. He tries to say, give back. Like, I was where you're at today, and I was in that path. And just as Sammy Davis Jr. reached out and said to him, what are you doing with your life? You're gonna either end up dead or in prison. What are you doing? He tries to do the same. And it's good to see people give back. That's like Vida. Vida is a brilliant multi-award winning actress, but she's never done giving back to charities, helping people get their life in order, with community, and she's one of them people. It's not only beautiful on the outside but the inside as well.
Definitely. She is a magnet to very nice things.
Shucks, boys, I'm blushing.
So, but now we've touched on the fact that you do give back. And I think you both give back because you have your hands in more than just making films. You reach out and, there's a good thing, good vibe coming up. I know I've seen you in Mindy, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What other films have you done? Well, I know there's the anime with Lisa Kudrow.
Lovesick Fool.
Lovesick, yeah. Now you've done other things. There was a, I think, controversial but funny Middle Eastern Persian comedy. I don't know if everyone took it as a comedy, but now that won awards too. But it was kind of like controversial. Is that true?
Was it a film or a TV show?
I think it was a TV show.
TV show. Oh, I had a really interesting sketch on Jimmy Kimmel, but it was a very controversial time. There was a lot going on with Iran, ISIS, of course. And I remember when I shot the sketch, it was with some really prominent Middle Eastern actors. The guy from Rock the Casbah, Fahim Fazli, is a very prominent Afghani-American actor. And I was so excited to work with him. I've been on Kimmel so many times, but it's you know, something always happens. And because it's controversial stuff. And I remember the writer guy going up to the director saying, I don't know, man, this is misogynist. This is racist. This is just very wrong on so many levels. I played a woman. It was a spoof of eHarmony. It was like the Middle Eastern version of eHarmony, which does exist in Iran. It was called eMarriage or something or other. And it was written about in all the big Iranian papers. But the problem with the eMarriage thing was that young boys and girls, they wouldn't get married. They just want to date each other. And you can't date in a Islamic Republic of Iran. So it was a take on that, and I played a Middle Eastern woman, and I was traded for a goat. And they brought real goats. They had the goat handler. They had the mom goat, the baby goat. But anyway, the guy said that, I don't know if this is just so right. And then the other guy, the director, was like, come on. He was like a typical director. He's like, it's a Jimmy Kimmel show. We can do whatever we want. Well, it never aired. I couldn't even get a copy of it. But I just remember they put so much effort into it because they had a handler for the mama goat. They had a handler for the baby goat. They had like a Middle Eastern cultural advisor who was just like shaking his head. It was like a whole to-do. So I think it's very funny when they put so much money in something and then it just whatever. But it was a blast working with them. And I think for me, I don't find it to be that politically incorrect because it's comedy. In the Mindy show, I was a covered woman, but I thought was really funny was I had a really good monologue where I didn't know the father of the children, and it was like, I was like a woman with a lot of makeup, and then when I went to set, they completely changed everything because I guess there are all these Middle Eastern groups, like lobbying groups, and once they put their hands in everything, everything changes. It's the era of politically correctness. I mean, part of me wishes that things would stay originally the way they were because they were very funny, but I think a lot of my friends and family might have been offended.
Now, I've met your mom and your sister.
Yes.
So are they like some of your biggest backers? Are they into the movie industry as well?
It's very interesting. My mom was a child actor in Iran. She performed, when times were better, she performed for the American ambassador to Iran, Ambassador Grady. And she was a child actress, but the problem with Iran was that wasn't really respected there. And a lot of my relatives were in the arts. One of my dad's cousins ran like Persian media. He was a big filmmaker. He made The Hunchback of Notre Dame in Farsi. But he had a very tragic life, with the revolution, and not to get political. Being an artistic person in the Middle East is very hard. You have a government censorship. But on the other hand, everything is government backed. So like their film festival is subsidized by the government. So they never really have to worry for money. Their version of the AFI, the government pays for it. But then again, on the other hand, the backside is, it's a double-edged sword, is that they control everything. So I had very artistic family members. One of my dad's great uncles was a very renowned artist. So there's a lot of pressure for me with the Persian community. They have crazy expectations for me because I have this very artistic family, but they were also very political. But they were also very, like, my dad was a professor. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between all these things with the media, with the acting, with education. One of the charities I'm involved with, 826 LA, is wonderful. They tutor kids after school. But I feel like they don't really need me as much as the people that are very good in math and science. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Anybody that's good at math and science, please volunteer. But I help the kids with, like writing workshops. They have a journalism workshop going on. I really want to get into that and help them out because, I'm always going to be a journalist down to my core. So it's an interesting juxtaposition, East and West. And I think, not to get political, but whoever wins this election will be an interesting time, not just for Americans, but for, how people of Middle Eastern descent will be portrayed in the media. So
Definitely.
I find that to be interesting. So we'll see.
Now, you're from Baltimore. You're not from the Middle East, right?
I'm from Bethesda, Maryland. It's a suburb of Maryland, which now is very shishi frou-frou. But when I was growing up, it was, not to date myself, but it was all station wagons with wood on the sides and, you know, barbecues. And now it's really shishi frou-frou. They have their own Apple store. They probably have like a couple Lululemons. And DC has really blown up. And I think this past two presidential elections with President Obama has brought an interesting cultural flavor of Chicago to Washington. I think back in the day, you know, with Bush Sr. and Bush Jr., there was more of a Southern presence. Now it's a more cosmopolitan presence. So I think that whoever becomes the next president will also impact my hometown. But yeah, I'm from Bethesda, Maryland. But the problem with being from DC is it's like a one-trick pony. Everything is political. You know how like everything is show business here? Mm-hmm. Like the celebrities were like lawyers and, you know, ambassadors and people that work for the World Bank, and it's just a completely different atmosphere. I mean, there was the arts. There's really good theater. There's probably more theater there per capita than anywhere else except for Chicago and maybe here in New York. But there was a thriving theater market, but it's for a more mature, sophisticated crowd. Like Mark Russell did very well for himself. It was all political stuff. So, hence.
So now, what's up with your book? Isn't there a book coming out? Don't you?
You know, I should have. I've got. You know, it's funny you mentioned the book. I was offered so many book deals as a young lass in Washington when I was working on Capitol Hill, and I never took it. I'm like, what do I have to offer? And I really regret that. There's been some interest about doing a book on my dad. My dad was a very well-known scientist and mathematician. And his whole thing is about having people in America, or in the world in general, becoming more interested in math and science. It's very controversial with the STEM thing going on and, you know, pushing arts education, whether math and science. But my dad's dying wish was to have a scholarship for math and science. And I'm trying to figure that out and how I can make it feasible. I'd hate to do it for 1 year, 2 years. I'd want to make it bigger and better. So any groups that are interested in scholarships for American youngsters or Middle Eastern youngsters in math or science, please help. But yeah, that's one thing I'm going into. But yeah, the book, I haven't really explored it, but I've been very busy with my fashion, beauty, and lifestyle blog. So ArieVita.com.
Cool. Now, how long, have you already launched that?
I'm trying to launch it. Right? Yes, there's going to be a launch. There's going to be hopefully a soft launch and hard launch. And Joe's really been trying to help me get it going. You know, it's funny. I spend so much time on it. Now I'm finally harnessing it in because I was a journalist to begin with. So when I do a blog post, it's like a novella for me, Maurice. Like I can go on and on about creams or events or people, or I love to profile women, but it becomes like long. So I finally learned how to be like a blogger. I think with bloggers, pictures are more important, keywords are more important. So that's become a toil for me. But it's wonderful because I support women, and I found that women are so supportive of me. My dear friend Louise Caribbean awarded me with an entrepreneur award, and I was the only blogger that was honored. It was mostly people on fashion and beauty and entrepreneurs that were women. So it was, and you were there,
yeah,
so supportive. So it's really become a community of women, and I'm in some great blogger groups and such a supportive group of ladies. I thought it was going to be like Mean Girls or something, the movie, but I've met such supportive women.
Tell me what you did on Capitol Hill. What was your role?
It's very interesting, not to date myself, but this was like pre-9/11. I worked at I got grants from the places that don't even exist anymore, National Journalism Center. I feel like I learned so much at that place. Big shout out to Mal Klein. He was my mentor. He's now at Accuracy in Media, and he's still so supportive of me. He often like checks in and sees what I'm doing, and such a lovely fellow and a lovely group of people. That's the place that offered me the book deals, and I really wish I took it. And I remember, you know, when you're really young and they're like, oh, well, you know, why don't you do a book on, I did something called Legal Services Legal Services Corporation. And he's like, well, why don't you do a book on the Legal Services Corporation? And I was like, I don't know, I was like a kid. I was like, that's kind of boring. And he's like, no, well, like, do whatever you want. And then another one of the guys there, or maybe it was another think tank I was involved with, was like, why don't you write a book about being an Iranian American woman? I'm like, who's going to care about that? I mean, now it's like you go to Barnes and Nobles, if any exists anymore, and there's like a whole section on Persian American chick lit and Arab American chick literature, female literature. And who knew? And these things are becoming movies, and they're becoming plays, and they're becoming TV shows, and it's become this whole thing. And part of me regrets not doing it, but I just feel like my stories then were not enough to be a book. You know, I was a young girl, but I worked at the National Journalism Center. I had grants there, U.S. Institute of Peace, the Woodrow Wilson Center. I had an amazing mentor named Ben Amini. He was a phenomenal guy. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. As it turns out, he was a distant relative too. I did not learn this. There was no nepotism involved. I did not learn this until I started working there. But Woodrow Wilson Institute was started in the name of President Wilson, and it's this wonderful organization, and they bring people from all over the world, and it was an honor to work with them. I got the grant through a New York Times writer who was my mentor at the time, Elaine Scialino. She was a very interesting woman. She was on the plane with Ayatollah Khomeini when he went to Iran, and she was such an interesting woman, and I learned more about Iran and Iranian history through this American woman, Italian-American woman from New York by the name of Elaine Scialino. She was awesome, and just an incredible, incredible lady. We didn't always agree on things politically, but she really mentored me, and if you get her book, Persian Mirrors, there's a thank you to Vita Ghaffari. So, and she was telling me, you know, Vita, you've got so many stories. You should write these stories about your family, about, you know, I grew up in a very, I'm from a very secular family, but they're very culturally Persian. But they've been in the US a long time, so they're very westernized. But very few people have a family like mine, and that, you know, my dad was here since, I don't know, like the 1940s. So I kind of have a different take of things. You know, my dad was working for the US government during the Mad Men era. So it's like a completely, and he had a secretary much like Christina Hendricks. So I have a completely different take of things as, you know, the typical Iranian American. I'm not saying that my story is better than their story, but I feel like working at these organizations really formed me. I really enjoyed the mentorship I had. College is great, but I think having mentors is really important, and I had amazing mentors at these associations. I could only wish that more people would do, you know, mentorships and programs, and grants are fading, grants for arts, grants for media. I was really formed by these people.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds to me that there's a producer and a director inside of you.
I feel like there is.
Also a filmmaker.
Yes, there is. And you know, one of my passion projects I really, really want to do, because there's so much interest in Iran, is I want to do a project on my dad. He lived to be over 100 years old. He did so much for so many. He mentored so many people. And I did not even know this until he passed. And he was really urgent on getting people to study math and science, especially immigrants. He really wanted them to give back to America. And you know, America this is a wonderful nation, but we're really lagging in our science and our math. And I'm an artist, but you know, I come from a family where my dad made me go to math camp every summer, and he was really into education. And I just wish there was something I could do to facilitate that. But I would love to say, you know, tell my dad's story. There was so much of an interest at his memorial. I made a little featurette with an Iranian filmmaker, and his name is Shaheen, and he is Sorat, and he is incredible. He was, his mentors were Abbas Kiarostami, who is a multi-award-winning Cannes filmmaker, and the other guy, the other fellow that won the Oscar for A Separation was his other mentor. So I had this incredible guy. He was my boss at Persian TV. I had this incredible guy piece this. It was just something we made for my dad's memorial, and everybody, people in Iran are saying, why don't you make a film about this? And that's my next goal. I would love to say my dad's story, because it's a story of wanting people passionately to pursue math and science.
It's not like you've got like everything just bubbling up, just like a nuclear popcorn.
Oh.
For instance, speaking of bubbling, whose jewelry are you showcasing?
You know, I call this the Mitra collection, and my mom's name is Mitra. My mother collects a lot of pieces from like forever. She loves vintage. This I don't know where it's from, but she gets a lot of this is vintage pieces of stuff that's been in the family, and this is a vintage gown. But normally when I go to events, I love wearing Sue Wong. I probably should have worn Sue Wong today had I known, but I love supporting her, and she's a phenomenal designer. And I just love wearing vintage pieces and modern day pieces. And I feel having the fashion blog, I'm much more privy to, you know, designers. And a lot of these designers are such wonderful ladies that really inspire and motivate other people.
So can we say there's a designer in you too?
I love to design, and I'm always telling Joe, you know, I'd love to design, or I'd love to have a cosmetics company, and I'd want it to be, and I've learned a lot about beauty products, but a person's got to sit down and do it. You can't just do it. I think being friends with people like Sue Wong and one of my other ladies I love in fashion, well, there's so many of them, is Galina Sobolev. She has a single line, which is amazing. Everything is made locally in California, Los Angeles. And she does so much for so many young women. She's involved with the LA Mannequins charity and all these other charities. And every piece of clothing this woman makes is locally. Everything is locally. And I feel like if I was to design, like, I'm around these like amazing ladies, like, what am I gonna do? Like a t-shirt? Like, I'd wanna like go full hog. But I don't know, I mean, maybe I design like some pieces, but I think my thing would probably be jewelry and like makeup. Yeah, start small. I mean, I don't see myself doing couture pieces. These ladies are like legends, and they're trained, and it's like their life's work to do these things. But very sweet of you to say. But yeah, the fashion and beauty blog is great, and I've learned how important it is to support locally.
And you also do a lot of voice acting.
Yes.
You just did that Lovesick Fools.
Yes, I did Lovesick Fool, which has become a true film festival darling. It's doing so great at film festivals. It recently was screened at Holly Shorts, and for me that was like, it was even beyond a dream come true, because when I would visit family, as I have 4 generations of my family in Southern California, we'd go to Hollywood, and my nervous Persian cousins would be like, oh my God, because Hollywood back then was not the Hollywood of today. Just, oh my God, it's so unsafe. And I'd be like, no, it's amazing. And I would see the stars, and I would, on Hollywood Boulevard, and I'd see the Chinese theater, and Holly Shorts screened at the Chinese theater. So that was a tremendous honor. This Lovesick Fool has been doing so well. It won at Topanga, it won at the LA Art House, it screened at Ojai. It's just been a film festival darling. It screened at the Burbank Film Festival, and that's an international film festival. Wow. So it was a wonderful experience. It stars Lisa Kudrow, Fred Willard, Janine Garofalo, myself, and some amazing, amazing voiceover actors, Renee Rivera, David Polsino, David Banks is a great voiceover actor. It was a wonderful ensemble, and it was written, directed, and animated by Dominic Polsino, who is Emmy nominated. He's worked on The Simpsons, Family Guy, King of the Hill. So that was a tremendous experience, and to see that film screen at so many festivals was just an amazing, incredible experience. And Topanga, too, was wonderful.
How did you make the switch from journalism to theater? Theater and,
I did all of it. I minored in theater at college. I used to perform at the Black Box Theater at University of Maryland, and Maryland is I think it's one of the largest state schools in the country. So I think one has to forge their own community. I did radio there. I did my Capitol Hill stuff there. For me, it's always been like a mishmash of everything. I've done the journalism back home. I performed in theater back home. But like I said, DC is very, very limited, especially for entertainment media and shows that are not of a political nature, as they say. But for me, what was really great was when I was working at Persian TV, I would do the promos. And I'm a native speaker of English. I'm an American. So they would have me do the English, and they would have me do the Farsi. And usually my Farsi wasn't as good as a native speaker, but they're like, you know what, your English is so good, it's okay. So one of my bosses would say, one of my mentors in Persian media would say, they're going to work you twice as hard, and they're going to give you half the money, which was kind of true.
That is so fantastic. I just wanted to thank you so much for being here today. I wish I had more time to talk to you, and I hope you come back.
I would love to.
You and Mr.
Pleasure.
Williamson.
Thank you so much.
But just want to make sure everyone just realizes that it's not just about having talent. It's about, well, it appears from what I'm looking at, you're a person who has talent, but you've done your best to diversify yourself so that you can actually do a lot of things with it to impact people,
yes,
and not just get a trophy.
Yes, yes, and I think it's very important for women to support other women, and I want to somehow use my platform with fashion and beauty and media and acting to somehow impact women. So I think the next charity I will seek, and I'm looking into a couple others, would be something with mentoring young women in some way, shape, or form.
There you have it. And Joe?
And your Twitter and your...
Facebook, yes, it's facebook.com, official Vida Ghaffari, VIDAGHAFFARI, and Twitter and Instagram and all that is at Vida Ghaffari, VIDAGHAFFARI, and soveryvida.com.
And how would we find Joe?
On Facebook, on Williamson Management or IMBD.
All right, and then you know me as Maurice Joyne Smith on Twitter, also on Facebook, and you can find us also here at the Arroyo channel. So, having a great day, and just want to thank everybody for showing up.
Thank you so much. What an honor to be on your pilot.
Joe Williamson, and this has been a great day at Nuclear Popcorn.